Oh, hey there. Hey, everybody. And every cat as well. So we start with the news that happened in the past week since our last show. And a big one flashed across the wire today, which is the partnership with the Futureverse and the Cool Cats. To summarize, each of the Futureverse and the Cool Cats exchanged minority interests in their businesses for one another. And Ken Cron, the chairman of the Cool Cats, is joining the Futureverse board of directors. Meanwhile, Aaron McDonald and Shara Senderoff are joining the Cool Cats board. And they had a Twitter space 3 hours ago that explained their goals and aspirations working together. And it was quite interesting to listen to. And I'm happy today that we don't have a guest, because if we had a guest that was about something other than Cool Cats, which just broke not too long ago today, it would be kind of awkward, because I think the topic that we probably should discuss is Cool Cats. An additional news that happened over the past week is that the Genesis Goblin summoning period came to a close. There was like 21,000 odd Genesis Goblins minted. Can people still mint non-Genesis Goblins now?
I'll have to actually check if the mint is actively live at the moment, but if it's not, it will be soon for the next summoning event.
Yeah, so lots going on.
Well, it actually won't be called the summoning. I believe that's the recurring. But yeah, more goblins on the way, for sure.
What other news did we have? We had the Easter competition, which some people won.
Yep, it was really cool seeing the entries from that, and good bit of involvement there. It was fun. Gonna get
Am
some
I
cool merch out to
missing
those winners.
anything else? The big news of the day is really the Cool Cat
Yeah, definitely Cool Cats,
partnership.
which is awesome. Definitely a big validation for Futureverse, the Root Network, and kind of what we're doing. So big ups to the team for pulling that together, and definitely looking forward to the future on how that plays out.
It seems like a good idea to me. Yeah, let's. I want to hear what everyone else thinks about the partnership and the Futureverse as a whole. We only do these shows with no guests, once every, 2 months or so. So usually they're some of our most listened to shows, and we get lots of people on stage and lots of topics going on. So I hope we can replicate that today. Let's welcome Bill Doverde to the stage. Hello there.
Hey, thanks for having me. And super excited with it. It was quite amazing spaces to hear both all the Cool Cat side with Klon and Ken Cron and Ryan, I believe it was, as well as Aaron and Shara. And this go around, it seems like they approached it a lot better and has been very much well received on both sides, much better than anything that had happened in the past, I guess. So yeah, super excited for it.
Yeah, there's a bit of contrast towards the last time there was the last two times that there were sort of collaborations, I guess, was the Seekers had some Cool Cat features, and the Cool Cats sent a tweet about that, and it didn't go well in terms of how well it was received by the Cool Cats community. It was, I guess, confusing messaging, and it wasn't received well. And neither was the invitation to have better odds of getting a Muhammad Ali NFT for the next Legends. This one was done much better than that, and seems to have been received pretty well for the most part.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I tried to spend time in both Discords today, and it seems like there's a healthy amount of both cats asking about Futureverse, and obviously it's a pretty complex ecosystem and a lot to take in, and also a lot of fluffs asking about cats and fractures and pets, and how it all works out as well. So it's cool to see the engagement between the two communities, and both communities being very helpful and welcoming, and trying to teach everybody about what all's going on in both sides.
As for this show, we're going to try to get some Cool Cats content for our listeners. Maybe we can do it next week, but we haven't secured a speaker yet, so we'll work on that. But I'm sure a lot of us have questions about Cool Cats. I do want to point out that this partnership is not intended or about getting holders of one of the community members from either Futureverse or community members from Cool Cats to buy the NFT of the other one. It's much deeper than that. The goal is a long visioned one aimed at years of time frame, in terms of right now the Web3 community is 5 figures strong, only less than 100,000 users that are using it regularly, and that's not a sustainable way for it to exist. It is in its early days, and the technology that is currently out there is not good enough to onboard the mass market. Both of these leadership teams understand that and are working together with a combination of tech, IP, and other strategies to break beyond the current market as it constitutes. Now, that is not something easy or quick. The Futureverse has a lot of technological tools, but we're not exactly sure exactly what they have, because they've only released a small amount compared to what they said they are going to release. So yeah, this is not about community members of Futureverse buying Cool Cats or Cool Cats community members buying Futureverse assets. So I just wanted to hope that resonates with somebody that might feel differently, or maybe I'm going to get some agreement, I don't know. But that's a point that I wanted to make.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot to do with the network effects, right? Building out the use cases, building out our partnerships with different people, and just building cool things together across the open metaverse, I think, is the main point of all this. And really just cross-pollinating communities to grow together instead of in their different silos as well. Just merging two really awesome brands with technology, as well as the brand piece of it, to make cool things together.
It's important to realize that as it's currently operating, I don't think anyone in Web3 is necessarily winning. If you define winning as expanding to mass markets, the communities that have high floor prices or are growing floor prices or growing their user base among the already small Web3 crowd, I think they're considered to be winning right now. But I don't think that the leadership teams of either of these companies believe that is a viable strategy for a sustainable period of time. So they're going to work together to create a viable strategy. And because nobody is winning, it makes sense for some of the companies or two of the companies that are known players, big players, to team up to try to win, as opposed to trying each team trying to do it themselves. You know, like, I think a lot of people view Yuga Labs as currently in first place among trying to achieve this goal. And it makes sense for other companies to join up together if they have something to offer each other.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. A few things from the actual announcement there that it discussed were a custom marketplace, 3D explorations, asset personalization, AI tools, and obviously more to come. I thought those were some really cool key deliverables that will showcase what Futureverse is capable of, to the Cool Cats community, and kind of, gain their trust and show that we're, here to stay and do business together and make cool things happen. So, yeah, I just thought those were really cool key deliverables, and we also want to see that play out over time.
So, Sam, what can we do to get more of our listeners to come on stage?
We can always ask nicely. We could offer maybe
a Pope? Just kidding. Let's not do that. POAP? Sorry.
Hey, honestly.
Did somebody say POAP?
I can whip up a POAP in like minutes. So if we ever need a POAP.
POAP.
It's not a Pope. Otherwise it's POPE. Come on, Max.
Not a Pope. It's a POAP.
You know this.
It's well documented.
I thought the animation was cool too. It was cool seeing a 3D cool cat kind of running around and fighting the little mushroom in the ground. It was funny.
Yeah, it's interesting to see them come out of like that. I mean, it seems like they come out of the fracture, but it also gives me like very Portal type of vibes. So I'm curious to see if that's just something that is kind of one of those tunnels that they had originally spoke about, to where you can go in and out of, like, hey, I'm going from Cooltopia to the Third Kingdom, and or vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, definitely interoperability at the forefront. I could see long-term MMO type game where you can hop between either Cooltopia or the Third Kingdom, or maybe they're kind of one and the same, but remains to be seen. But definitely all about building out these experiences together and exploring and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. I think is a really important thing.
Yeah, I think that some of the team members from both sides, I think most of the people are already familiar with Aaron and Chara, but I was pretty impressed by the business people on the side of Cool Cats as well. They have some serious experience between Ken and Steven.
Yeah, Steven and Ken are very impressive, and really their whole team is. I like Klon and all their different team. I haven't met a ton of them yet, but from my experiences with them, I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, and even Merv, their community manager, shows great respect that they have for him to be able to host such a heavyweight of cast, and was in their Discord earlier, and they were doing voice chat, and he was doing full-on songs for everybody, and quite the musician. Just created a really nice chill vibe for the whole community. So really was impressed with their whole team as well.
Yeah, altogether, I would say pretty good start to the partnership. I think, well, if you count this as the start, then yes. If you count the Muhammad Ali or the Seekers thing as a start, then it wasn't a good start. But yeah, I wonder if crypto Twitter will start to talk about this or not. I think more likely not. They'll prefer to talk about what they usually talk about. And I think that's what we should expect. And I think what we should also expect is for the growth of Futureverse and its ecosystem and its tooling to occur slowly over a long period of time with gradual advancement. I think a lot of people expected, some type of bazooka moment. The word bazooka gets thrown out a lot. But I think what actually is the more likely path to success for Futureverse is years of launching technology and tooling and experiences that slowly show themselves to be better than other available alternatives, and that followed by a slow capture of market share, as opposed to something that's like, okay, we announced a partnership and now 1 million people buying 1 million NFTs. I don't think that's very likely to happen. So I'm hoping that people in the NFT community, as well as people in the Futureverse community, are kind of see things for what they are. I mean, definitely people can disagree with my take, and there's, of course, other possibilities that can occur. But I think people should, in general, be ready for that type of occurrence where they make a big announcement or a big partnership and that doesn't lead to hundreds and thousands of sales and a rising floor price.
Yeah, I agree. I would also just say, we can all do our parts to make each other feel welcome and be a good community to each other, and share things on Twitter and interact with each other on socials and things like that, to kind of amplify the noise if you'd like. We got Mo Meta on the stage. How are you, sir?
I'm good, guys. I was going to leave you hanging today. You needed a few speakers, so I thought I'd dump on up. And of course, I'm super busy, man. I'm out and about, so if I get rugged or I've got to jump in an elevator or something, I'm going to drop out, but I'll come back in. I really like the idea of having Ken on board for the World of Warcraft stuff. Because, we've heard it mentioned so many times from all the guys growing up. They love World of Warcraft. His background with Blizzard Entertainment, just having that depth of, experience in the industry, I think that's really exciting. But I'm going to jump back on mute. I'm going to try and jump in and out as I can. As I said, I'm out and about and I'll do my best.
No worries, Mo. Thanks for coming up, and definitely couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot of experience on board and a lot of great guidance from the leadership level, so really excited to see it all play out, and yeah, couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to see too. It's not even kind of to Max's point about not expecting, thousands of sales and floor price rise and, we made it again. But it's another obviously impressive team, as we kind of mentioned earlier, and they see the vision as well, and they have the belief in the Root Network to make this type of partnership and, commit to building a long-term relationship, utilizing their tech stack. So it's more validation, personally for me being a holder, seeing them be able to, have another well-known brand and highly experienced team have that belief in us as well.
Yeah, major validation and just, testament to what we're building, and just goes to show that we can, do anything we set our minds out to, really, and, time to prove and build out these things that we've set out to do. Just major validation, I think, from across the board. The more people that adopt the Root Network and join on to hop on our chain and build with us, the better. So definitely a net positive for everybody.
I think there would have been a lot of timing and consideration as well. They wouldn't want to announce this partnership, create all this interest within this other community, being Cool Cats, and not have a short timeline in regards to when the root network's going to go live and when the utility's going to come in. I think that would have all been thought out very carefully. So the fact that they're announcing this now is also a positive sign that we're getting close to what we all want, which is that utility.
Yeah. Again, like, they have X amount of employees working at Futureverse. It's around 300 something. And they've been working at Futureverse for, some for longer than others, but they've had over 250 for quite a while now, like maybe like at least 6 months or so. And before that, they had, so they've had a lot of time to be building things. In the beginning, they didn't have enough employees to do, too many things at the same time, but now that they do, there have been teams that have done Buzzies and Goblins and other things that we've seen recently, but most of the members have not worked on that, but have worked on something else that we don't really know what they've worked on because it hasn't been released yet. We don't know the extent of what has been built that hasn't been released, and we won't know that until it's released. And even when that's released, when the next thing is released, the same will be true at that point as well. Like, there will be more that has been being worked on and not released. So we as the public or as the community have no way of knowing how much has been built. And whenever people ask, they're not going to get the answer because the team is not going to say that, of course. So we're in the dark, but it could be a lot. It could be a little. It could be what you expect. It could be what you don't expect. They could have a lot ready to go, and they could have a little ready to go, and we just really won't know the answer at any point in time. And you just gotta either be comfortable with it or not. But it is how it is. And if they release something today, that doesn't mean that they're farther along. And in fact, it doesn't have an effect on how far along they are when they choose to release something. If they don't release something over the course of months, one might assume, well, the reason they're not releasing it is because they haven't done it. But whether they release it or not, the work is still being done by the 300 plus people that are working. So, just to point out, the rate at which they release something does not equal the rate at which they are building it. And we have no way of knowing the rate that they are building it. So, take that for what it is.
Hey Som, how's the roll-up going with coordinating all the teams behind the back of house there? You guys getting all organized, getting pretty close? Does it feel like you're more streamlined now?
Yeah, definitely a lot more process in place across the board to kind of standardize things. And yeah, going good. Overall, definitely good to see that all take place, and definitely a massive undertaking. But yeah, it's been going great. I'd say it's definitely a net positive for everybody.
Because I mean, we also saw the announcement from Alex with his new role and what he's going to be taking on. So I think that's really exciting to know that all these people are going to be changing their job descriptions to some degree to fit in to what's going to work best for the overall ecosystem. So I'm sure there's a lot of streamlining and a lot of new positions for people as well, which previously didn't exist. Do we know who the new CMO is going to be?
I don't think that's been said at all at this time, but don't want to jump the gun on that.
Are you trying to apply Meta?
Am I applying anything? No, I'm just very busy, just throwing words around as I'm out doing my daily chores,
Yeah. Well, I feel like anyone asking when marketing probably shouldn't ask that today. Right? I feel like this move is a pretty strong marketing move in terms of getting visibility. We don't know how effective it will be, but it's certainly high effort.
And I mean, I feel like that on the back of the Gods and Goblins Mint, and that being like another very creative way to, market to Web3 communities. And I do think that was successful in, some capacity to where, I've seen new people in Discord that have found us from that, or people getting future passes and, getting on board to follow the path. So, yeah, both of them combined, I definitely don't think anybody should be asking about when marketing.
Yeah, I wonder how effective the goblin strategy is, and maybe we could get some numbers on it. Just because there are not communities built around rug NFTs. So, like, for example...
Unwanted.
Well,
Thingy art's not a rug.
Unwanted, I'm not saying that all of the unwanted NFTs are rugs, but some of them are rugs, right? And the ones that aren't rugs generally have a bit of value to them and thus haven't been sacrificed. So like an example of like a rug NFT, if I'm looking at the list, would be like the cat butt one, kitty butt. Like, that's definitely a rug NFT.
Ooh, I've earned some of those.
So there's not a community of kitty butters that's easily reachable. But there are a lot of NFT people, many of which have left because the size of the NFT community has substantially dropped from the time when kitty butts minted. But I'm sure there's still plenty of holders of kitty butts that are in the general Web3 community, because there is no kitty butts community, and potentially they would be reachable if everyone in the Web3 community knew about this and cared about it, the process for junking and receiving goblins. And that will only happen when the goblins can do something more substantial than they can do now. It's definitely a novel piece of technology, or an effective piece of technology, that somebody can click a button as easily as we've been able to do and get a unique 3D character that is immediately available for a 3D asset file within seconds. And that is definitely technology that has not been shown in the Web3 space, and probably not been shown, period. So,
yeah, I also think it was a great test of the root network as well.
Yeah, so
proving that functionality.
Step. But the marketing step of reaching people from these communities is a tall task that will require a lot more delivery and a lot more market awareness that we currently don't have. And I think one might expect that the announcement of the partnership between Futureverse and Cool Cats will get a bit more Web3 awareness, but a large portion of the people that become aware of it will ignore it and be like, okay, I want to get meme land and whatever the next thing Yuga does, and Azuki, and whatever else is trending, Nakamigos. And we shouldn't expect otherwise. That's the way it currently is. And in order to break that, Futureverse probably needs to deliver the tooling that will make it possible to break that, or else somebody else will break it, and that's also a possibility for sure, because trends come and go in the Web3 space and in all spaces. So just discussing, some of the ways it might fold out. But, if the goblins can do cool things, and it's something that can be, and currently, if one of my friends said something about NFTs, right? And I don't really have anything to show them of what FLUF World can do or what Futureverse can do that's particularly impressive. Like, we could show them the Burrows app, but it really hasn't seen significant updates, and you can take your bunny into a burrow and run around, but that gets old real quick. We can show thingy art, but thingy art isn't nearly as developed as other AI art that people are familiar with already and know. So what else is there to show that somebody, like a third party that doesn't know about Futureverse, can see and be like, oh, this is something? To get somebody excited about Futureverse, they have to have a passion for emerging technologies, or already are a fan, or have a lot of friends that are fans. It's not an easy sell currently. And that brings us to the item that is most sellable, which is the FIFA AI League, which is available in beta for Android. Do we think that has an ability to bring a lot of people in? I think there were higher expectations when it was announced than the expectations are currently.
I think they posted there was like 5,000 downloads of it, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's actually really awesome in my opinion. I think it's a pretty fun game, and you could change it, reskin it in some ways, make updates over time, iterate upon it. I saw somebody in Discord was asking about if they could use a cool cat like as the characters and stuff. I mean, that could be something fun down the line, like potentially just importing other different characters as the players, maybe. Just little things like that. Yeah. Cats vs. Ape, that'd be funny. Not tying us down to anything, but just, capabilities are there, and yeah. I think the possibilities are endless, really, and on the aspect of goblins, I mean, and junking things, I think over time, obviously, we'll be able to vote on what is going to be able to be junked, so we can kind of choose to maybe target some communities that, would really be interested in getting involved and, actually, burn their NFTs and get involved with goblins and do things with them.
Isn't that really hard, though? Because what active communities have NFTs that are worth less to that community than a NFT that has no cap in terms of the supply?
Really it comes down to the value of it. It's not a scarcity thing. That just is talking about value and scarcity. I mean, the value can be driven by what you're able to do with it, right? You immediately have your 3D files. You can do whatever you'd like with it, create whatever kind of content, or put it in some game that you'd like, or eventually use it in our games as well. Those kind of things are where it really gets its value from. It's a scarcity-driven thing.
I don't think the market currently values that today, and maybe it will value that tomorrow or in the future. But realistically, there aren't people that buy NFTs from 3D collections to use as like IP. It's very rare. The only people that do it are the community members of that community, because they're trying to promote the community.
Yeah, I mean, they're also just cool in their own right as well. I mean, right. They don't have to be scarce to be interesting or cool.
I hear you, but I don't think, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think there are communities out there that are strong communities, that are reachable communities that, exist, that have NFTs that they would want to throw in the trash, to junk.
But I mean, to play devil's advocate, just like you said earlier, like if they do start to deliver with time, and there are some really cool activities that you can do with goblins, and you can't do currently anything with the NFT that is unwanted, as some would put it, then like, why wouldn't you if something then becomes like, oh, well, if I get a goblin, I can do X, Y, and Z, and I can't do anything with my unwanted NFT, I want to be able to do that. So like I do see like over a course of time and deliverance that could become extremely more popular down the road.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that will come from the communities of the NFT that is being junked, because any community that is surviving in numbers is worth something, right? Like the NFTs with floor prices under like 0.02, you know, they don't have members. The NFTs are owned by people that have written it off in their head and they're like, okay, well, this didn't work out, so I'm not spending any time whatsoever, and I'm not going to get a message from people there. I don't have friends there, you know. The way that it could work is if we reach the general Web3 environment where it's like, I'm a Web3 enthusiast and I have minted or bought NFTs from several collections, some of which have done well, some of which are struggling, and some of which are worthless now. And if I hear about this as a Web3 enthusiast, then I'll be like, oh, let me trade my worthless NFTs that are on the list for goblins. As opposed to, well, I'm a community member of a project that isn't worth anything and has an empty Discord. You know, it's impossible to reach in that type of way, I think. Like, there aren't projects out there that have a floor that is very small but are very active.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think the Polar Pals, whoever runs their Twitter account, for sure has a goblin, but I also didn't see any other Polar Pals like coming to defend. Like, I love the engagement with him. Like, they did an amazing job with everything that they did with the whole gotta stop these stinky goblins. I thought it was hilarious, but I would agree with you that I don't think there's a whole community following that account that is fully on board to try to save that project either. But yeah, I would agree that it's more to the Web3 enthusiasts that if they can hear something about a project that they no longer want and can roll the dice on something that may be a lot better, then, you know, there's a lot of people that like to gamble in Web3 as well. And if I can take something worthless and try and re-roll the dice for something that may be more valuable in the future, especially with root dropping and the deliverance of that and potential gamification and rewards and, you know, all the possibilities that the root network could provide, like, I would rather take that risk. But, you know, again, I agree with you that it'll take some time.
It's not about the fact that people don't want to get rid of their worthless NFTs and replace them with something better. It's how possible or how difficult is it to reach them. So, for example, kitty butts don't sell. They're not worth anything. I've been challenged to say kitty butts as many times as possible in the spaces. Anyway, 103 of them have been burned out of, I think, a 10,000 collection, so 1%. How do you reach, well, you're not going to reach 99%, but like, how do you reach a more substantial portion of kitty butt holders? Because I think a lot of kitty butt holders, if they were to know about this, you know, would be interested. But how do you reach a community that doesn't exist?
It's a good question. I do think some of it is kind of like ironing it out in the beginning, trying to get it all, you know, ramped up and have the first Genesis mint, make sure it all works properly, future passes working properly and everything. And then, you know, finding different marketing tactics that work in terms of conversion to these different communities. And then using those different conversions, you know, to continually get those communities involved. And I think that will come a lot more through once we have experiences that people can use the goblins in and things like that, and like, you know, things they can do with them as well, will definitely kind of drive more interest towards them. But, you know, just different activations and events that we can have around them going forward will, I believe, help more people know about it.
Can I just jump in and add two really quick things? Firstly, Max, can you put more emphasis on the T? The T in kitty butt. Because if you're running around saying kitty butt holders the whole time, it's a bit weird, So kitty butt. Thank you. And the other thing is, with utility, like bringing these other communities in, imagine that those goblins are boxing in the next Legends, and it's a play and earn mechanic. Instantly, you're going to be getting rewarded. You're going to be leveling up your goblin. There's all that mechanics involved. That's the kind of thing that's going to have people saying, man, I don't trust holding on to this rug NFT anymore. If it's got real utility, is a play and earn mechanic, I can engage with another community. It won't take much to move that balance into our favor. Kitty, K-I-T-T, Max. Thank you.
This is the way people pronounce things where I'm from.
But no, I couldn't agree with you more. Also, like the whole swappables aspect of it and accessories for goblins, that will definitely be a thing. So, look forward to that. Definitely different avenues that we can gain interest from other people into goblins.
Yeah, well, do you think an active game is necessary though first? Like, there's already collections
Necessarily.
that have swappables and 3D files that no one gives a crap about because they don't. And, like, why would they? I certainly don't think swappables and 3D files, even if it's very cool technology, I don't think that has a market fit to meet right now. I think there needs to be something considerably more for it to find success.
Well, the good thing is we have the partners and the funding to try things over and over until we find what works. So we do have a plan in place and we'll execute it, see what works, what resonates with people, and keep pushing forward. Make mistakes, make successes, and keep driving those points home. So regardless of whatever works and what doesn't, I think the main point is that we're kind of here to stay and make things happen, and figure out what works. So
I really like what Vince is doing regarding like small amounts of gamification, just so that we engage. I just need a reason to go into the underground every day and push buttons and start being a part of the ecosystem. When my thingy had affordable art and I had moon rocks, then I'd be going in there, I put my thingy to work and I look forward to coming back, sometimes it's 6 hours later, and seeing what he created. So that was really exciting for me. Hold on, just gonna pick up a dog, back in a sec.
Well, maybe we can get more people on the stage. Hopefully. Yeah, small activations are cool, but it's not. It's maybe a way to sustain a community, but it's not an easy path towards growing a community, especially not by a meaningful amount.
You start with the small activations until you move into the larger ones. I think is kind of the path that we've led out.
Yeah, I think what holders or people should expect is for this to still take a long time, to not be super quick. And that's okay, but I think that's at least what I expect. There is a game that is currently available in beta, and some said it got 5,000 downloads. That's a good start. Of the amount of people that download it, I don't know what percentage are actually playing it, and of the amount that are playing it, I don't know what percentage are interacting with other parts of the root network, or if that's even something that is a desire or a goal of the team. But we should expect small wins, a lot of small gradual wins before on a journey towards becoming a big company that reaches millions.
Hey Max, Morning, guys. How are you?
Yo, how's it going, Money?
Hey there.
Good to see you.
Good. I've been pondering this. This is one of the reasons I came up, and I've had some thoughts around this. And knowing the backgrounds of the people involved and having some similar experience myself in the same sectors, I looked at a comparison between Bored Apes and how they've launched and incentivized their community without actually gamifying yet, and how they've kind of been very successful marketing wise, and there's some key differences there. With Bored Apes, they had a huge buy-in through MoonPay, and God knows who was behind that. Maybe one of the big VCs was buying into the project, but they didn't have an actual, they weren't gamified, they didn't have an actual product, right? And coming from the world of telecommunications, what you tend to do first is build the network, dimension the network for a projected amount of users, and then you start your marketing campaign. And my thoughts is that's the same philosophy and operating principles Aaron and David are operating under. So whereas the community probably wants a lot of more marketing, more incentivization, the engineers working on this are thinking, let's park that for now until we know all of this works, before we go into a full court press on marketing. And there's people in the community that don't understand that, and I think that's where the disconnect might be, in that communication.
And do you think that is the proper approach for this new emerging technology that is Web3? A tried and tested approach like the one you described? Or do you think a more novel approach is appropriate?
I think the approach that Futureverse is taking is the correct approach, but the problem that I see currently is the communication of that approach. And having spaces and informing the community as to this approach of building something that we know is tested, because a lot of people don't have experience in engineering or in building a network, right? So they don't understand what goes into it. So maybe an education in engineering principles, I don't know, something to help people understand why the marketing campaign, or why there's not a marketing push now in the project.
I've often thought that having too many eyeballs on your project before you have something that can mass market, or at least can mass market towards the amount of eyeballs that you have, is particularly dangerous. One example that I think went pretty bad is when the other deeds were minted by Yuga Labs, and they didn't have very good process and technology for launching them, but they had maybe 100,000 people plus paying very, very, very close attention to it. And I caught them off guard, and they weren't prepared for it, and they had to pivot. As opposed to Futureverse has done several different launches where they have been prepared for the amount of volume and the amount of attention. And if there was a lot more attention than there was, it might have been very hard to manage. And if there was a lot more attention on Futureverse right now than there currently is, how much more difficult would it be to manage, especially when you have delays and challenges and pivots?
Well, you have competition. You have competitors trying to beat you to each turn, And if you're going up against what used to be the branding, Unzuck unsuck everything, right? If you're going up against competitors with a huge cash balance sheet, you would probably have to move in silence, and do everything, while people aren't looking, right? So, I mean, if you just look at Meta as a competitor, right? Their strategy has always been to buy their competitors. But what if a competitor doesn't want to sell? Well, then what was Mark's philosophy?
But like Snapchat.
Yeah, when a competitor didn't want to sell, he would try to destroy them. Right? You don't want that. You don't want that. You don't want those eyes on you.
Yeah, but would you say it's difficult to balance that and keeping a community of people that invested money in your products happy and content? It is challenging for sure, right?
Oh, for sure, it's challenging. That's why I think proper communication is always important in these types of projects, especially with the community of people that have bought into your project.
What do you think have been some of the biggest mistakes in approach that have happened over, the past year or two?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know.
For me, it was back when it was the top of the market for NFTs in general, and everybody was doing the same thing. And so it's not like Futureverse did something that was out on a limb and was different than what everyone else was doing, but they started to overpromise and underdeliver back then. And since then, it's been over a year, they've gotten much better about not overpromising and underdelivering. But because they had started with these big promises, once they started to back off doing that, there were a lot of community members that really believed in the promises and that they would be delivered that have over time become discontent because they were promised X, Y, and Z and not delivered X, Y, and Z by the date they were expecting.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
But see, I come from an engineering background, right? So, I know the hiccups in running projects like this and project managing these things. So, were you looking at it as like those things? Like I don't notice them because I'm a little bit more dismissive. I'm like, can they really do that according to that projection date? And then I started thinking in my head with my engineering brain. I'm just like, I don't know, blah 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 blah. And that's where I get into the more of the communication part. Like if they're project managing it, right, and they can't crash the PM schedule according to a certain date because of X and X hiccups, and they can foresee it, I think that's where communication to the community could be a little bit better.
Yeah. Thoughts from others on the stage? Should we go back to Cool Cats? Hello. Not everybody all at once.
Yeah, I'm down. I also just pinned a good thread by the Shay Show with the Gods and Goblins kind of breakdown up there, so if anybody wants to check that out. Also pinned a tweet from Monty trying to engage with little cross-pollination there with some Cool Cats and FLUF people, so feel free to post on that and try to connect with some new people. I've been enjoying spending time across both of our Discords, though. It's been very lively and welcoming from both fronts, so yeah, I think it's been a really good announcement today and been having some fun.
Ooh, I see a question in the Discord. It isn't related to this space, but how do I create my future past? I think that might be a question that we might start to see. Does anyone have the answer to that? You just go to under.fluff.world and it
Yep.
just does it, right?
Yep. I'll let them know right now.
Yeah, but don't you need an amulet for it to be fully active, or is that just my misunderstanding?
No, anybody can do it now. Actually, we've opened it up because of Gods and Goblins.
Okay.
So that anybody can burn junked NFTs and get goblins and that sort of thing. Otherwise, it would be too restrictive at the moment. But yeah.
One thing that I'm looking forward to seeing is the root explorer improving to the point where it's like usable to the extent that Etherscan is, or at least close to that. I think that would be a big step for me. Because someone that's like a third party or like a public person that only has access to what's public can't really look at the root network, can look at the white paper, but you can't really see what's going on too well. I think that's an important step. Until then, those types of technologists won't really consider it as a blockchain the way they would consider, some of the other newer and up and coming blockchains and layer ones and layer twos, such as like Arbitrum or Optimism or Sui or some of those other ones. So I think that's a big step.
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see a schedule for when I can get my Muhammad Ali's next legend on the route and play with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. I think the reality and how long different things take to not only build, but then quality check, have enough people looking at it to avoid catastrophe, security items, audits. All those things take a long amount of time, and one might think 300 people, that's a lot of staff to be able to do things like that. But then when you consider how much of the staff is specialized and allocated towards each item that Futureverse is working on, the amount that are working on any given item is nowhere near 300. A couple weeks ago, we had the CEO of Immersive, Jerome Fari, on the show, and his team has over 30 people, and that's just one of a couple of the companies that are part of the Futureverse rollup that specialize in like business-to-business payments. So like, not all of the people that are grouped into that 300 are working on content or network or anything that is like what you're expecting to be built to necessarily. So like, things take a long time, and there are a lot of staff that are part of the whole Futureverse, but less amounts that are dedicated to the specific thing that each person may be most excited about.
Yeah, it's also about... Go, Manny.
No, I'm just saying there has to be a project manager or program manager overseeing the holistic view of this and has a schedule on deliverables. So
yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of ecosystem calendars with all different departments all trying to coordinate each other. For me, it's just about going through those steps, bridging those TNL boxes over and then getting them into the gym. I just want to get inside that gym and just take part in the process as each different, project in this ecosystem takes that next step to test how everything works. I just want to be involved in it. And the gyms, that's probably something I'm most looking forward to at the moment.
What do you anticipate the gym experience being like?
Now that's a really good question because I am not up to speed on the AI side of things at all. But for me, I want to be able to refine and mainly use my AI brains. I really want to try and put a Gen 2 brain into an avatar, into its form, and then just start learning. I expect them to teach me everything I need to know through this play and learn mechanic. So for me, I have no real expectations apart from knowing that they really gamify the process. And it's going to be enjoyable, and it's going to be at a pace that I can understand. And I think getting in early on anything like this is so important. And I mean, that's for us as well to try and help the Cool Cats kids get up to speed with everything we're building, because we are building so much and it's overwhelming. But it's about being involved, participating, and just taking each step as it comes. And for me, the gyms will be just that again, you know, show me what button to push, show me how I can improve my my boxer or improve my goblin, whatever the case may be.
I think a lot of what we're doing is participating in the journey towards building towards the vision of Futureverse, and it's not something that happens quickly, but if everyone is here because they wanted to participate in something like this, that would be really special. But definitely a sizable part of the community is not really interested in that, but is interested in one of many other options of things to be interested in, such as playing a game or being a part of a community or various other things that people may be excited about, or people that are excited about the financial aspects of certain things, or whatever reason they're participating in whatever they participate in.
So I jump into lots of these Web3 community spaces, all the different DeGods, everything that's out there. I just like to know what's going on, and their only real concern is floor price. And if their floor price is low, what the founders and teams can do to raise the floor price. And that seems a bit foreign to me, because the floor price really has nothing to do with it once you own the asset. Once you have exposure to the ecosystem, this is just me, this is how I feel. Once you've got exposure to the ecosystem, like, now I want to wait for that utility to roll out. So it's very difficult to understand going into these spaces, and everyone is only focused on the floor price and the art behind the NFTs. They're all very much, we say the art's terrible when the floor price is down, but when the floor price is up, the art's amazing. And I just go in there to try and figure out how the rest of the ecosystem are thinking, because they think very differently to the way I do, who's someone who is just happy that they managed to get into the project. I got a FLUF. That was the big move for me, to get my avatar, to get my FLUF, so that I can participate in whatever comes up going forward. And I never check the floor price, but I mean, that's just me though, huh?
Well, we're very early into the world of NFTs, I think, relatively. I mean, based on my expectations, the NFT technology is a big deal and will change the way humans interact with one another and the way they do business and just life in general. And that currently isn't currently, and what it has been as NFTs is a niche community of people that have different motivations, but the loudest people sometimes are the people that care least about technological innovation and care most about making a quick buck. And the culture that has been established is the one you described, where it's what have you done for me lately in terms of the floor price. So I don't know. It is what it is. I'm not a fan of it. But if you go into NFT spaces that are like aimed at an NFT audience, that's kind of how they go. So I'm glad that our show Somnium isn't like that, because I can't stand it.
Yeah, we definitely do a good job of having some well-rounded conversations. I would say it's important to have those and not just focus on price and that sort of thing only. And yeah, just I think the most important thing in the space is really just to build and, you know, build great communities and yeah, just do cool things together. Not necessarily just make money, although that is a great thing. Yeah, I think it'll be cool to see how it plays out between Futureverse, Cool Cats, and all the above. Because there's a lot more in the pipeline coming. So, we've got another requester. Add them up. I've also pinned to the top the Future Pass breakdown from Futureverse. If anybody wants to look through that or wants to get their Future Pass, you could do it there. You go to under.fluff.world and then just connect your wallet and you can do it through the steps on the screen. Music NFTs, how's it going? Glad to have you.
Hi there, good evening, sirs. Good evening, Fluffle and Cool Cats family. Yeah, just to add to the conversation, what you guys are saying, like right now, we are living in a time where, and specifically in the NFT space, where the more attractive things for people that got people into NFTs is to buy something and make some money off of it. Thankfully, being within the FLUF World community, they're trying to change people's minds as to where, like, hey, NFTs aren't just art or, profile pictures. You can actually attach technology to it that helps better humanity. And I think, being within a community like this, and finding a company that's even taking that initiative, they're just taking us on a ride with them, on something that people got in just to, try to make money on. So I think it's like, thank God for these spaces, Mometa spaces, Gary's Metaverse, Samian spaces. Like, you guys are pivotal in educating people, like, hey, NFTs are not just profile pictures anymore. This is technology that will help us live better lives as humans, but at the same time, we can have fun with it. So, I just wanted to share my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's definitely a matter of making a more equitable future for everybody. And yeah, I think it's there's a point that I was going to make about what you said, and I lost it.
I'll just jump in and say thanks. Thanks for adding to it. And one part of this ecosystem I have enjoyed at the moment is the Walker world being able to stake my avatars to get ooze. It's just another aspect of knowing those NFTs are now locked up and they're providing more value to that ecosystem. That will get me something else I can add to my character, or I can participate in the ecosystem more in the future. So just even knowing that they're sitting there, but they're doing some work as well, I kind of like that mechanic too. So, I mean, hats off to Crypto Walkers for building that in.
It was a matter of changing consumer trends and consumer habits. That's definitely something we're focused on, and kind of what you alluded to by what you said. Music NFTs is definitely something we're focused on to, really change the way that consumers think and behave in terms of NFTs and digital collectibles, metaverse, that entire spectrum.
In all of the products and experiences that humans currently participate in that are popular, there are aspects of Web3 technology that could make them better. The infrastructure may or may not exist for each of the things that could make it better, but I think it is irrefutable that Web3 technology can make every type of product and service better if implemented correctly and with the proper amount of infrastructure. What we need is companies building that infrastructure and coming up with those use cases in a real world, not theoretical, like making it a real world thing as opposed to a theoretical thing. Like any product that you buy, it's easy to come up with a list of ways that Web3 can make it better potentially, but it is years of work to make those systems robust enough and to create a mindset in the population that they want that and they want to participate in that, and it's easy enough for them to participate in. And Futureverse is more than carrying its weight towards doing that, or at least that is what they say they're doing. And a lot of us believe that they are going to deliver on it.
This is pretty much a sandbox where we can see how we can play with these toys. So that at a later stage, whether it's real estate, tokenizing property, or any other aspect of supply chain, using NFTs as verifiable proof of transaction or ownership will be used. So at the moment, doing it in this way is a very simplistic, easy onboarding way to prove how all of this technology works. So yeah, it's fun. It's a fun way to do it.
Can I share a little example that happened in my life just yesterday? My mother received a package from Amazon, and it was 25 disposable metal pans with lids. And when she received the package, she's like, what the hell? When I ordered it, it said 30, not 25. And then so she went to check her email to try to get confirmation, and everything that she clicked went to a link to the product page, which now says 25. And it's impossible to tell whether her memory was incorrect and that it was 25 the whole time, or that they changed the product page from 30 to 25. So something on the blockchain like that could not happen, but because it's on a centralized server, that Amazon or the company within Amazon that's selling via Amazon can change the wording and the pictures on the product, and it's kind of like she can't have any evidence. She can't prove whether it had said 30 or if she misremembered.
Yeah, that was definitely a point that Jerome was making regarding e-commerce being one of their first verticals for immersive, because that payment sector and that proof of purchase is so much better when we're using blockchain and digital wallets to prove it all. So that's a great example, Max.
Do
Yeah.
you guys think that they have a huge digital vertical launch that will accelerate this and blow this up in such a way that every single one of us is going to be surprised?
I don't think so, but other people do. If anyone does, please jump on stage.
Well, I do. I asked the question just to see what everybody else's opinion is.
How do you define a bazooka, really? Like, what a bazooka is to one person, is a partnership. But to me, it's, what is adoption? It's really hard to tell what they mean by these huge announcements coming up.
I'll tell you.
Tell me.
I'll tell you. Okay. I found, a while ago, that there is a link to Cryptoys here that you guys, I don't know if you're aware or you're not aware. And if you know anything about Cryptoys has Masters of the Universe, and which is a Mattel property. And if you look at the other Mattel properties that are out there and that are launching in the summer, you might be able to find a huge link that might come out this summer. That's my speculation, not confirmed. It's not alpha, but it's a speculation, because even if you look at, there's one of Cryptoys announcement, and it reads like this. And the next generation avatars are far from static. Cryptoids employs an artificial intelligence team that will grow your NFT brain over time, imbuing it with learned skills as you interact with it, like a Neopet, with which you can have increasingly sophisticated conversations. In-game world, your NFT could graduate from a combat rookie to a super soldier. Perhaps someday that could be a hustling secondary marketplace for NFTs that have been juiced up to God tier. Now, what does that sound like to you?
Before I continue, a quick word from our sponsors that make the show possible.
Introducing Fraz Cola, the world's premier beer-flavored beverage.
It's Fraz, delicious, highly nutritious with a top-secret recipe that's so delicious.
Nothing beats the buzz of a cool Fraz Cola. What are you waiting for?
We're getting Fraz to the NAS.
Consume at your own risk. Symptoms may include and death.
I'll jump back in because I was just putting some dogs back in the car. There's some great speculation there. It sounds like a lot of the use cases the Futureverse are building all being implemented into one mass market strategy. So, I mean, sure, it is speculation, but at the same time, that's pretty exciting to read something of that nature. Definitely.
Oh, hi everyone, Factions here. Thank you for having me on the stage.
What's up?
Hey, hello there.
Hey, how's it going? I think that Cryptoids is just a completely different company. Like, I don't think it's anything to do with Futureverse.
Well, they have a partnership. They have a confirmed partnership with Raised in Space, so it's not speculation.
All right. Wait, they have a confirmed partnership with who?
Raised in Space, which is a fund that Shara is a part of.
Oh, okay.
Founding.
Oh yeah, that's the thing about Futureverse. It's just so wide, isn't it? You just learn, like every week, you just learn about something else that's kind of connected to it, like a piece of Lego or something.
Yeah, so Raised in Space, Scooter Braun, Shara Sanderson, and Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, also sits on that board of Raised in Space too, just to tie everything back in together.
So, Tybo, you have joined the stage. Welcome.
Yeah, I was meant to be going. I had other plans, but I think my wife took the other car keys with her, so I'm stuck at home now. So I thought I'd come join. But yeah, no.
Well,
that group. Sorry, what?
On behalf of the audience, we thank your wife for leaving you, ghosting you.
Well, it's annoying because I've been like looking for the keys everywhere and they're not in the house, so she's obviously got them because I've torn the place apart. But yeah, she's at work, so I can't even talk to her. Anyway, back to the speculation with the crypto toys. Who's running that? And it sounds that you basically described ASM without describing ASM. Did anyone else think that?
It's run by Mattel, right? Which is a massive toy company in the US. And yeah, let me let other people answer the rest.
So Cryptoids has partnered with Mattel and Flow to launch their NFT project. But they have certain language when it comes to the gaming side of it that are very familiar, and some of them might actually be trademarked by ASM. So,
is it true that ASM follows their Twitter?
Yes, it is true.
Partnership confirmed.
Yeah. I can put a tweet in the chat if you guys want to see it. I
had a question asked to me about all these brand partnerships, that are normally, you could say, extractive companies getting into Web3. Do you think they could be a bad influence on Futureverse? Or do you guys think it's indifferent? Or do you think the Futureverse team is trying to vet the right people to onboard onto their ecosystem in the right way? How do you guys see these big brand partnerships? Is it just more extractive Web2 companies joining, or do you see it as a mixture or completely Web3 focused?
I think it's a very complex topic, because I think in general, yes, they are extractive, but on the other side of that, Futureverse cannot scale at the speed they want to without them. And on top of that, what makes it super difficult, I'm sure, for the team, the Futureverse team, is that the opportunities for partnerships with various companies, are not always on their terms. They don't always come when they want to. They just kind of happen. Like, for example, the way that Aaron described how the partnership occurred with Cool Cats, it was kind of just like something that just like happened. There's I forget his name, Bhavin is an individual that somehow connected it through a series of events that occurred, and then it just happened that the sides got together and came to a realization that this would be a good idea for a partnership. And then I'm sure they spent a long period of time ironing that out. And the same thing must happen with to an extent, the same thing must happen with every big potential partner. It gets triggered through some type of connection or some type of event where they get into a meeting or something. Like, it just doesn't happen because, like, the FLUF World team doesn't have the power to be like, I want to work with XYZ, give XYZ a call, and boom, there it is. Instead, these things kind of happen as they happen and require pivots when they happen. And the whole thing must be very complicated because they're working with, already that have been announced, a lot of different partners, big partners, and some of those partners have lots of different departments. And then there must be other partners that they've talked, that they haven't announced yet, or other companies that they've discussed having a partnership but haven't finalized it, or they've discussed the partnership but haven't decided if they want to go through it. And you have competing interests every single time, and different people on different boards and in different positions that have different opinions on X, Y, and Z, and it makes coordinating this whole thing incredibly difficult. But without all of these partners, Futureverse can't scale.
They can't scale at the rate that they need to be competitive. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so let's say they just build the technology and only build IP in-house. How are they going to achieve something anywhere close to the vision that they've set out to do?
Wait, Max, are you saying they haven't dimensioned this out before building it?
I think they continuously redimension it out. They dimension it out, then something comes up, and they have to pivot and dimension it out again. And then several months later, an opportunity arises that they can't pass up, even though it doesn't fit within the dimensions, and then they got to readjust again.
Okay, maybe let's define dimensioning first, because I think we might have two different definitions of dimensioning. When I refer to dimensioning, I refer to it through a technical term we use when building out infrastructure we know that within the first 2 years, we're going to have X amount of users on the network. So we need to make sure that the network can handle this amount, X amount of traffic. And then we leave a 20% margin on top of that for anything that might occur that's off plan, right? So are you saying that they underdimensioned?
Well, you can build something that can have X amount of users, but you also have to have a plan to attract or a close amount to X amount of users. And that is very difficult to do in the Web3 industry because it's so new and the circumstances are changing every day or every week. So if let's say you're building technology for 5 million people in 24 months, right? And then you get 3 months into that and the market has really changed. The growth rate in new users to Web3 has gone from being on an uptrend to being on a downtrend. It's very difficult, much more difficult than in any other industry, or maybe not in any other industry, but in general, in known Web2 industries, to predict what's going to happen in the larger market. It seems much like you can build your network for X amount of people, but in order to achieve that amount of usership, that's got to be something that's very, very fluid. And on top of that, if you get contacted by a big company that wants to work with you and that you want to work with them, but you already have your plan in place, making the decision to ignore them or not move forward with that potential plan versus deciding to pivot towards working with that big company, that can't be an easy decision unless the decision is to go with that company because they feel it's so beneficial. It must be difficult to turn down a big company is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think they would necessarily turn it down. Like most dimensioning occurs from a marketing plan, right? So you have your marketing plan, right? And then you dimension your network according to this marketing plan. If somebody comes in that's off of this marketing plan, then you try to fit them in the roadmap, but also taking into account how many engineers you're going to need or you're going to have to increase the size of the network by a certain time. So, I mean, I don't think it's difficult to manage. I just think that you need to be very fluid in order to do it.
Yeah, fluidity is definitely very important to what they're doing. But back to the original question that Tybo asked, it be about whether these partnerships that they're forming or have formed are beneficial, not beneficial, and explain how and why, because a lot of them are built on extractive. I mean, they have different business models than the Web3 ecos, right? Like, how does FIFA operate, for example, and how does, a brand like Authentic Brands that has a lot of different brands and is a conglomerate, like how do those type of companies operate in their world, and how do Web3 users expect Web3 companies to operate? There's a lot of divergence at the moment right now.
Do you think that people have defined expectations though from Web3 companies?
Well, it's not like a black and white concept, right? There are certain things that large communities of people that like can come to somewhat of a consensus on, but not a full consensus. Like, for example, when Nike launched a particular project that they did, and what it ended up being was the permission to buy a pair of shoes. People didn't like that. It was like, the Web3 community is like, we don't want to have to buy an NFT that gives us permission to buy a product that we may or may not want.
Yeah, that was so tone deaf on their behalf, though, because people were paying like 2 or 3 ETH for that coupon, and then to top it all off, they made it America only. So they shafted the people that weren't in America that wanted to buy it, and then they also pissed off all the people that paid a huge premium.
That's a bit of an extreme example that we brought up right there, or I brought up and you continued on. But there are established things that Web3 communities believe in or want that diverge from how some existing companies practice.
Can you give an example? Because I'm not familiar.
Oh, didn't we just give one?
Is that what you're talking about? Nike? The Nike example?
The Nike and Artifact example was a way that the Web3 community was like, no, we don't like this.
Would the Audi example also be something like that? Because that's the one I'm familiar with. Would the Audi example be also?
Well, I'm not familiar with that one. Tybo, are you familiar with Audi and Web3?
I just remember the Porsche one.
I remember Porsche.
Porsche, not Audi. Porsche. It's all the same company. Yeah, Porsche. Porsche.
So Porsche released an NFT that didn't sell out, and then they cut the volume, they cut the supply, and then it did sell out. But what did they end up delivering? Because I don't think they made too many promises.
PCO said that they actually have some pretty cool utility. I think the way that they did the mint was just terrible, but what they were offering was good. I just think that, like, if you're a Porsche company, like, why not, like, you know, send an email to or connect with your people that have been buying your cars and go, hey, like, you know, you gotta just, like, we're gonna airdrop you some of these NFTs, and some people are gonna buy them, and they're actually gonna be worth something. Connect with the people that actually like your products is what I would do. But they just randomly just made a mint that was 1 ETH, a 10,000 collection. It just seemed a bit tone deaf to me, them asking that much money for an NFT like that. Whereas I feel like they should be connecting with their current users of their cars. It just...
I think one of the main obstacles for existing companies to break into Web3 in a good way, a meaningful way that is well received, is the fact that their existing customer base, only a very small percentage of their existing customer base has the knowledge and ability to operate in the current Web3. Like, they don't have a MetaMask wallet, or they don't know how blockchain works, they don't know how to use it. How do you sell something that is an NFT on a blockchain that people haven't used to people that have not used blockchain at all? Like,
what Reddit did was a good example of, albeit they are internet users that have understandings of making a profile. You are right that there is going to be friction trying to onboard a bunch of Porsche users to this NFT. Like, are they going to safely hold it? Like, I guess this is more sentiment to Futureverse being needed for these brands to connect with their users in a way that's frictionless, and there's actual tangible value that they can acquire from buying these NFTs.
I'm having a hard time, like, because there are good examples of onboarding that have been done in such a way that I think is actually Futureverse's target. Like, if you look at how people were onboarded to NBA Top Shots, that was seamless. Anybody could do it.
Yep, let's talk about that. So NBA Top Shot is on the Flow network, where when you want to buy, they have moments, which are essentially like videos of something that's very similar to a trading card, like a sports card, baseball card, but for basketball. And it's you just connect like your actual bank account or credit card, and you just make payments the way that everybody knows how to make payments. You don't have to like set up a wallet. You don't have to have a seed phrase or a ledger or anything like that, and you can just easily participate in the ecosystem even if you don't know what Web3 is or care. And you can still sell the things that you buy. Now, I think that aspect is great. An aspect that may not be so great is like, why do people want that? And the question is the same thing as why do people want sports cards? But like, I have trouble understanding why people ever wanted physical sports cards, or why people would want a moment that a lot of other people have that doesn't really do anything. So I think if you combine the ease of use with something that actually improves people's lives or they care about, and I'm not saying, definitely there's a subset of the population that does care about this, even if I'm not one of them. So I don't want to dismiss that. But there are a lot of segments that are more popular and have more users than like playing cards for sports, for example. So if you were to extrapolate having an easy onboarding system with something that people interact with all the time and a lot of people use, or something that's essential even, or something that has a larger market share, that seems like it's a possible opportunity that hasn't really been broken through yet very, very well. Anyone have a comment?
I think Flow did a good job of onboarding, but it had their own growing pains. Because I specifically remember one of the people I followed complaining months on end about how he couldn't get his money out. So I thought that was a bit weird, because it was just like a credit card purchase. Why can't they just pay the person who, you know what I mean? Like, there's all this money was easily to come in, but they had huge problems getting that money out. And it just didn't look good logistically for them.
Yeah,
even though
it works well now, right? It's just, they had some growing pains, or maybe like they got bigger than they expected to be, and started before they had everything set up for something as simple as withdrawing funds.
Yeah, and I understand, like, that shows a bad light on their behalf, but at the same time, like, I think that's just something that we should all expect when we're dealing with something new. I remember Facebook, just most things that are like new to product, they come with bugs, and it's an iterative thing. And like when the Future Pass was released, it's been full of bugs, unfortunately. And maybe the team could have communicated that better. But I'm just going to expect more bugs, like the Root Explorer not really working properly, and Etherscan's had years, MetaMask has had years, and so will eventually Futureverse.
That's a fair point. It takes a substantial amount of time and iterations to create the types of products that people use today. There's a million examples that you can come up with. Early products not working. Like, for example, Apple had a lot of failed products in their past.
So even the iPhone stuff. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just going to ask, so do we just expect this as part of the growing pains of building something that hasn't been built before?
Yep, I think so. building something novel like this, you gotta expect growing pains, right? I mean, there isn't a playbook. There isn't standards. There's differences of opinion, and
I think what's more important is like with a traditional company that's running on centralized servers, if a hack or something happens, they can roll things back. But like the idea of rolling back a blockchain if something bad was to happen, like it's a lot more serious. There's a lot more at stake, you could say, when you have an immutable blockchain that's meant to just keep running and secure transactions. So making sure that it's all running perfectly smoothly and right. And you know, the way that they're testing the root network with like the Goblin Mint, it's all happening in stages, and then we're going to do the bridging. Like, this is all normal testing that a good blockchain should be going through. And if there are delays on the legal framework, or you know, dropping in token and all these other things, like, I think the team is doing us a huge favor doing it slow and right, but at the same time the community's just getting impatient and annoyed because the communication hasn't always been the best. But it's just normal practice, the way that these things have been rolling out. It just sucks waiting. Like, I think everyone can agree that it sucks to wait, but at the same time it's just the reality, and the quicker we can like realize that reality, the better off we'll be.
there are voices that scream loudly saying, bazookas are coming next month. Do you think that's
this is a communication problem. It's just like, maybe there was bazookas coming and then plans changed and shifted because things became bigger, and I don't know, like, I think enough over promising and under delivering in terms of communication, and just do what you did with Cool Cats. You just changed your PFP and then you made an announcement. Like, obviously there was leaks to the Cool Cats information, but I felt like if there wasn't leaks, that was a perfect way to go about it. And as long as they continue doing stuff like that, where surprise and delight, like, I felt like the Cool Cats announcement was great. Like, the way that that Twitter Spaces, the energy, everything was like positive vibes, and like the way that the Cool Cat CEO was talking about Futureverse was a breath of fresh air. You know, it just boosted my confidence with the team, because that guy's been working with Disney for 25 years. You know, he's been around, and to talk so highly of the Futureverse company is just confidence, because we don't always get to see what's going on the inside. So it's just nice to get that confirmation happening from another person that's respected and has the resume to back it up.
I think Steven from Coolcast did a very good job of explaining how long-term of a plan this partnership is. I was impressed by that. I think when you're a founder of an NFT project, it is difficult to know how to communicate, because if you just stick to only making announcements when they're ready and just like being silent about things before that, and that's definitely not a good approach. But also, if you're over promising and under delivering, that's not a good approach. The approach that is required is a very hard line to walk, you know, where you're conveying realistic expectations, but at the same time, you're not promising so little that people aren't interested in you. It's not easy.
I have another theory here. That, I mean, what if they planned on launching this project I mean, this is the root network and everything, with the launch of a huge bazooka, or whatever you want to call it, a huge launch of some type of media that has its own marketing campaign, and they are trying to coincide with another organization's marketing campaign in order to launch the root network so that they can capitalize on the marketing that goes along with that.
It's a possibility. There's also a lot of other possibilities as to why certain things haven't been released, or maybe they weren't supposed to be released yet. Or like, the thing is, like, for example, right, in the white paper they said root network will go live in Q3 2022, and what ended up happening is like a test net of the root network went live around that time, but wasn't available for any type of use. And as of now, we're now in Q2 2023, and there are now NFTs on the root network, and like the root network is technically running. Like, there are blocks every 4 seconds, and there are transactions that occur there, but an individual that's not on the team or working with the team can't do anything on the root network. The only thing you can do in the root network is through Futureverse websites, where you're not in control, they're in control, and you can't really see the full transaction behind the scenes. But what you can see is you purchase something, and you see that something in your wallet on their website. So it's like, what did they say? Something that's technically true? Yes, but when a reasonable person would read the root network going live in Q3 2022, you'd think they would be upset with the current status of it. So they didn't lie, but so going back to your question, like, what is the most probable reason why things are where they are? I don't know, there are a ton of explanations that someone can dream up. But I think the most logical explanation that requires the least amount of speculation is that the technology, they don't think the technology is fully there, ready to be deployed and secured, and so that there's no major breaches of the network. I think that is the most, that's the path of least resistance answer as to why it's not here. And other people can talk about things like legal changes, which is true, and marketing plans, which is possible, and partnerships that haven't been dropped yet. All these are possible outcomes. But I think that the Occam's razor's answer is the technology isn't 100% in place, audited, tested, and working.
I think it's just everything. Like, I would rather them just go, hey, like, we really want to make sure that this is all 100% up and running and perfect for what we want to try to achieve. But beyond that, we actually want to time all the marketing that we have with other companies to basically boost their user acquisition by timing everything so perfectly that they're probably just auditing it more and more. They probably think it could be ready, but at the same time, they're also trying to, make it even better and better. And I think they said that maybe it was a while ago. They said that there was a marketplace coming soon after the Future Pass wallet. So hopefully we'll be able to see the marketplace up and running this month, maybe. I don't know, like, it could be this month, next month.
Do you think they're going to deliver a lot of things at one time? Or do you think it's going to be, first we'll see an update to the Block Explorer, then we'll see a marketplace, then we'll see the ability to transfer assets.
I just think like the underground came first, the future past came next, like the gods and goblin mints came.
Right?
It's gonna happen in stages, because that way you can like refine each thing perfectly and then move on to the next thing. Or if it's not perfect, you can fix the bugs before you just become swamped of, if you release like 5 products at once and they're all full of bugs, then like it would be harder to manage. But if you release them in stages, it's a lot easier to manage.
With that being the reality, what you just described, I find it hard to believe that the reason for delay in particular items has to do with anything other than the fact that it is difficult to do from a technological perspective. I think planning it out to a T with other companies' marketing plans, when there's so many things that can potentially go wrong with each aspect of the technology and the security of that technology, is a little bit hard for me to believe.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you a lot, Max, because I have my suspicions as to what they're trying to time it with, and why they paused at this specific time, why they paused mining on the ASM Cortex and everything. Like, I believe there's going to be a huge launch in about a month and a half that they are trying to time this with, and the marketing campaign for that is so huge that they want to be in lockstep with that launch. And I have my suspicions of what that launch is, but I'm gonna let them announce it.
Do you believe that they're in a place from the tech perspective that they feel confident that they can, let's say your theory is correct, right? And there's a launch in a month and a half that they're trying to have everything go live. Do you think their technology is at a point where they feel confident they can manage that?
Yeah,
because, as an example, they just launched something that was, not a huge deal. Well, it's not a huge deal, but it is not at the same level as a full L1 launch with all these different features described in the white paper. Instead, they were just launching a minting process. That is true. It is a minting process the likes of which we've never seen before. And it involved the root network, and there's a lot of complexity to it, but it was buggy to an extent. And to launch a full layer 1, I mean, it's already running, but to launch all these features associated with the layer 1 at the same time in conjunction with something, I mean, I don't know that feels feasible to me.
We also can't underestimate the importance of liquidity, because unless we know what exchanges are able to list the governance token root and what legal technicalities they might be dealing with, because that's so important. You need to have a reputable exchange listing your token to be able to add the supply. So maybe there's something going behind the scenes with an exchange that's really important to the ecosystem.
Don't you think they probably have that figured out?
I think they'd have less issues with the technical side. I think technically they're across what they need to do, but legal, as we know, there is no realistic timeframes with legal, especially when you're dealing with other entities like an exchange who need to make sure that they have the clarity to list your token and the utility behind that token.
I hear you. Though a lot of exchanges kind of just do whatever these days. They'll list whatever. I mean, like, Ape didn't have a utility. Every exchange listed it immediately.
But if we can have the root network integrated into that exchange, that's a whole different type of relationship than just throwing a meme coin on BitTrue. We could actually make a huge play out of it.
Well, it is true that the Ape coin was just an ERC20 token when all these exchanges already have ERC20 tokens. So it is more simple to integrate that than to integrate something on a new chain. But a new chain's launch as well with token integration like SUI and what was that other one? It's not unheard of by any means that a new blockchain can launch and be listed on all these exchanges. And I think with the partners that the Futureverse has, specifically Ripple, at the forefront, I feel like they have access to that aspect. But I just think launching the type of layer 1 solution that is really something that has never been pulled off anywhere close to it. Like if you asked somebody that's a blockchain expert that knows a lot about blockchain to read the Futureverse white paper, and just if you tell them, well, let's say this all existed and can go live at any minute, I think they'd be very skeptical, because there's so many things in there that sound great and are great but have never been pulled off, and other things that have been pulled off but not at scale. So with all those things coming together into one layer 1 solution, it is a massive task. And for me to believe that they would be ready to launch a lot of them simultaneously, I think it's possible, but it's a bit of a stretch.
Well, why do you think it's a little of a stretch? I mean, when they make these agreements with the exchange, they have listing dates. So what's the stretch?
That part's not a stretch by any means. That part's easy. The part that is a stretch is there are so, like in the white paper, there's so much tech that doesn't currently exist in the public that people have never seen. Like things like donuts and DID, and I haven't read the white paper for a few months, but as soon as I read the white paper, I saw about more than 5 things that don't exist at all, and a bunch more things that don't exist in the mass market, or not even the mass market, but just like the crypto market, like in any significant number. Like there are very small protocols that exist on like partners of like components of Futureverse that at the time were just like sister companies to non-fungible labs. It is very, very advanced blockchain that can do things that other blockchains can't do.
Yeah, but they've most likely been running this on a test net for over a year or two. You know, it's not like this is not running in a test environment, different scenarios. I mean,
I guess my question is, well, number one, I don't doubt for a second that they have been running this on a testnet in some capacity, and also that developers associated with audit teams associated with Ripple have been working in this and testing it in various ways. It's just the difference between a testnet and going live. It's big. I don't know.
It's really not. I mean, I've launched RippleNet before and integrated with them in a Finacle core banking system. It's really not. It's just, it all comes down to the amount of people you have available to run the tests and do them properly. And I don't think they're lacking in that capacity.
Well, I mean, I hope you're right. I think there are certain things that I would have expected to be working right now if they were going to like have a full go in a month and a half. Like, for example, I would think you'd be able to bridge NFTs from Ethereum to the root network, or be able to transfer balances, or, you know, kind of any basic functions that aren't advanced before we see some of the more advanced functions. But if everything goes live at the same time, you know, it will be something to witness for sure.
Isn't the bridging part from from like the other networks to the root network, that encompasses Ripple and XRP and a bit of testing, right, to get that bridge with the gas tokens done. So I mean, let's say they finished the testing and have a launch date. Like, what would you expect the launch? You would have expected the launch date to have happened already, or to be in lockstep with marketing campaigns?
Well, the question is, what does a full launch mean? Because Tybo and I were discussing a few minutes ago, do we expect things to all happen at once, or do we expect them to happen in stages? And we both expect them to happen in stages, but I think you're of an opinion that a lot of things might happen at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what we're talking about. Like there's things that are more complex and required like lots of feedback and testing, and then there's things that are just easy to integrate and are ready to go. It just depends on what we're actually referring to when it comes to what is actually going to be coming out. Like when we say all of it's coming out at once, like what do we mean by that?
Yeah, if you look at all the components of the Futureverse white paper, which is available on Futureverse.com, there are lots of different components, right? There's the silo integration, there's the DID SDK, which stands for Digital Identity something. SDK is a more commonly used term, but it refers to
software development kit. So like
kits
that basically,
yeah, it's ways for other programmers to utilize this technology to build other things.
Yeah, so there's going to be an SDK for ASM, Silo, the DID, because the DID is essentially like digital identity delegation. It could be assets in general. Do you want apes going into the third kingdom? Yes or no? You delegate the identity of that token being acceptable to join that world. That's what the DID falls onto. So, because the idea of the open metaverse is like, you want it to be open to a point. Like, you don't want some GTA 5 dildo outfit running amok in the third kingdom. It just wouldn't fit the mold or style.
For the current conversation, can you maybe provide examples that are more tech specific than gaming or world specific?
I am in relation to what?
Well, let me list a bunch of the different components of the white paper and talk about whether you think they would be launched piecemeal or all at the same time. So one thing that we're very much looking forward to is the ability to communicate in a decentralized way as part of a decentralized protocol, which is integrated into the root network through its subsidiary Silo.
I mean, Sol could answer this question more better than I could.
Yeah, but
apparently
it's got to be difficult for him to determine what he can say and what he can't. But if he's comfortable, then he should. But I could understand why that might be very uncomfortable. So I'm just saying, there's all these components. Are they all going to launch at the same time, or are they going to be piecemeal? Like,
can you just for clarity's sakes?
Yeah.
When you say launch all at the same time, are you saying like all on the same day, or do you mean like launch maybe within the same week. This feature, that feature, this feature, and then the next feature.
Yeah, well, I guess we haven't really defined that yet, but I would be surprised at, well, number one, I think maybe it would be better to list a bunch of the features that we're in discussion about. So Silo has on its own a lot of different features, so we don't really know what the first iteration of Silo's integration into the root network will fully include. We do know that there will be a what do they call it? A port Somnium. What's the wordage that they use for the station where you view the nodes? It's something that is
currently just a dashboard, but there will be an official name, yeah. So
they have a dashboard which will have a name. They had like a contest to name it, right, Sam?
Yep.
You didn't like my entry, I remember. I forget what my entry was.
Not the greatest one, but
it was. You weren't a fan. But there will be a dashboard. But then, we think about Silo. We think about all the different ways to communicate and what that might look like. So we can assume that there will be like a text-based communication. We can assume there will be an audio-based communication, and a way to do it from wallet to wallet in a way that people can receive notifications of some sort, or some kind of indication of when they're getting a message, or how to filter a message, or in what application to get a message. But we don't know what any of that is like, and what it will be on day one versus what it will be a year in or 2 years in is very likely very different. So that's just like an example of like how to define the scope of different things. And then we can run the same type of analysis with ASM. Like right now on ASM, or at least until recently, you can mint a brain, you can stake ASTO in the Cortex, you can supply liquidity, but you can't train at a gym, you can't splice, you can't do a bunch of the other things that they talk. But at the same time, there's thingies that have a brain that can create artwork that uses the technology that they have in the back end to create that artwork. There are iterations to that. It is very difficult to define what we mean by launching all at once or launching over a long time, because there's different components that it is difficult to define and come to an agreement on definitions to define if something's happening for a long period of time.
For me, defining a launch is as simply as the blockchain, the network going public, and them partnering with exchanges and the governance token being available to buy on the open market. Once that token's able to be bought, then that network is live to me. Everything that comes after that is all going to happen in its natural progression of when it should happen, rather than being all at once, all systems go. But for the network to launch, as soon as it's listed on exchanges and it's public, that's launched to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think what was it Money GCC was alluding to was that there seems to be something brewing. Like we were speculating on the Cool Cats being announced for ages, but why now? We noticed that the Gen 2 brains are now being closed down for further notice until they get integrated into the root network. So there's little breadcrumb trails that are alluding to that
and before the last mining cycle was completed, they shut it down.
Well, my theory on that is, what is the point on having a low-priced asset on the Ethereum network where, number one, I don't think there's a future for ASM brain technology and a high gas network, it doesn't scale, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, it needs to be on a network that has low gas. And the cost of bridging a NFT from Ethereum is a substantial portion of the current value of a brain. And it might even be over, depending on the gas, it could even be more than the value of a brain to bridge it over. And if gas is cheaper, then it's still a substantial amount. So they shouldn't want people to be minting brains on Ethereum.
Why don't they?
The plan never should have occurred, but when they started making that plan, the root network was not a thing.
Yeah, I guess the point that I think I'm getting at as well is that now things are actually getting ready, that they're closing it up. Because they didn't want to take away people's rights to mine brains, because they're accumulating astro energy. They don't want to just stop people unless there's a good reason to. And the Cool Cats partnership, the brains being stopped, like the apparently bridging this month. Aaron's comment that everything's ready now, like, let's take that with a grain of salt usually, because who knows what he means by that these days. But the point is, it seems like there's something growing, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of formal launch with core functionality ready for the root network to be within 2 months.
If you can take yourself back, let's say 4 months, without and taking yourself fully back, so none of the knowledge that has occurred in the past 4 months, do you think you would not have felt the same thing 4 months ago?
No, I wouldn't have felt the same thing 4 months ago. Me personally, no, because I've always suspected that they needed to launch everything by July to coincide with a major launch that I believe they're connected to.
So you had believed about this major launch for a long time?
Yeah, at least since sometime last year.
Gotcha. There are other people that are part of the community that tend to have the opinion that something's going to happen next month, and some of them are in a positive way where it's like, I'm excited for something to happen soon. But then there's other members of the community that are like, oh my god, nothing that I expected to happen this past month happened, so now I'm upset. So, yeah, I don't know.
We're not responsible for them. We're all speculated degens, like, but...
Well, it's something to talk about.
It's on the team to make sure that they communicate effectively.
We're just trying to provide some content for the show.
I'm a fully admitted degen. So like, if I don't see big connections, I don't degen into something. So like, yeah, there's something brewing for sure.
But it's fair. I think what we're saying, it's fair to say that there's something brewing, and it looks like we're going to see some action in a month or two. Like, I highly doubt that we won't see something. Because
they already said it's the year of the rabbit, right? So everything big is going to happen this year. So.
Yeah. It's just like the expectations on what that thing is, or like how many things is, I guess, the question, because I don't think anyone could dispute that there won't be things that happen in the next 1 to 2 months. In fact,
I'm gonna tell you to look at their connections and then look at some slates. Okay, listen to my language. Look at some slates that are happening this summer.
Slates. Anyway, I'm just saying, there have always been releases every month. There have barely been. We give a weekly update every week in terms of what is happening.
I can't hear Max, so I'm going to step down and be right back.
Everyone else can hear me, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're good.
Every week we host our show, same time every week, right? And we start off our show with what has occurred in Futureverse. And there's been 1 week where I didn't have something to share in the 11 months that we've been running it. In other words, things happen every week in Futureverse. It's just, what are those things? How big do we consider them to be? And how many are them? Sometimes the list has been very big, sometimes it's been smaller, but like, there is definitely no competitor that can say the same thing, that every week they've delivered something. So we will definitely see something in the next 2 months, but I think you have a good idea of what you expect, and other people might have other expectations. You certainly seem well informed about a specific thing that you're expecting, and other people have maybe been less informed but have expected certain things to happen at certain times and they didn't. So we will see continuous development over the next, name a period of time, it will happen, and we can certainly speculate and each have our own opinions on what that will be.
Yeah, there were certain clues that were dropped along the way that made us think it might have been sooner than what it was. Definitely those red packets regarding the new year. We thought, oh man, get these red packets, let's get them over onto the root network and let's see what's inside them. So there's going to be a lot of things like that, and the TNL boxes that we're going to bridge over to the point that when it does go live, we're going to have all these old memories to drag up again and say, oh, that's right, I got the red packet, I got this. So a few opportunities were missed there, because delivering us those red packets and then having us put them into use would have been better served, but hey, they're still there. There's still a lot of things to look forward to.
Or at least not promise the red packets and then go silent about it. That's something that can happen and has happened a lot in this ecosystem, in terms of there are so many different components or like projects or collections. There are long periods of time where a particular collection is much more silent than a lot of people expected. So like, if there's a specific person that is only interested in one of the collections in Futureverse, that person has probably felt shafted at times. Like, for example, if you only bought you minted an Atom card or bought an Atom membership and bought an Atom membership, and as your only Futureverse item, you haven't had much to do. Like, there have been some community activations, but at the end of the day, you have this card that you don't have a car for, and you don't really have a whole lot to show for it yet. And that wasn't entirely clear to everyone that was buying it, that would be the case, that it would take a very long time for that to occur. Not to say that they're doing a bad job or they're doing a good job, just to say that there are certainly people that if they only had one particular asset of the Futureverse, they would feel, what is there to do here? Versus if somebody has all the different assets, then there's something to do every week. So we are quite a long way into this. Let's have some final statements. Does anyone have any final things to share?
When moon?
Well, it's nighttime over here, so the moon is currently
That
up.
was so insightful, Daibo. That was crazy.
Sorry, I just wanted to loosen the mood, because we've gone deep. It's been a good chat. No, I just think that I think the team are building cool shit. I'm excited about the recent Cool Cats official announcement. It looks like we're going to see more along the way, and as Aaron said, get ready. Even though I've had my seatbelt on for 2 months now, I'm hoping we can start the car.
Well,
yeah, I'm actually quite.
I've
I'm
never
quite
been in a
happy.
car.
Money?
I'm quite happy with the way the project is going and how they've been managing it. Just only thing I wish is just the communication was a little better, but I'm sure over time that will improve as people improve in the space. So, go Futureverse.
Tybo, I'm about to jump on a plane to NZ. What's the weather like? What shall I be packing?
I'm
He
Australian,
doesn't
man.
know.
Tybo doesn't live in New Zealand.
You're over here with me in 25 degrees. Do everyone else?
Yeah, the weather's
Where's
really,
Vegas?
He's a
yeah,
Hot as, bro.
it's pretty chill. No, it's good. The weather's nice, windy. A little bit of that chill, but then that when the sun hits you, it's like a warm blanket. That's what I have right now.
I think one of the biggest to-do lists as part of this partnership is Tybo must explain to everyone that may join Futureverse or be interested in Futureverse what an Aussie burger is. Do you want to do that before we call it a night?
It's just like a traditional hamburger with the lettuce, tomato, onion, a patty of your choice, or maybe cheese, but with the added addition of like sliced beetroot that's soft, not like crunchy, like grated beetroot. It has to be like the cooked soft beetroot, and then adding a pineapple with an optional egg, and that's an Aussie burger right there.
Well, there's only 30 people in this space right now, so you'll have a lot more explaining to do over the coming months. So good luck in your venture.
I'll get an infographic so I can just post it.
That's probably a good idea. Okay, so wanted to thank everyone that came to join us. We're gonna hopefully have some Cool Cat related content in the next week or two. And additionally, we'll be here every week with other cool content. So thanks so much for everyone that supports this show. Thanks to everyone that participated and listened and or is listening on the recording, which will be available as soon as the space ends. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe consider watching one of my other videos. Bunnies up!